The idea from Daniel Siegel that secure and meaningful relationships can shape a child's brain development, especially the functions with the middle prefrontal cortex. And one of the function is the flexible thinking.
Today, I'm delighted to be joined by Febri, a psychologist and university lecturer from Indonesia, who has also received RDI training. We talk about how RDI changed the way she thinks about development, what that has meant for her work, and why these ideas resonate across cultures. Hi Febri, thank you so much for joining us today.
Hi Jen, thank you for inviting me. I feel honored.
How did you first come across RDI and what led you to it?
I was first introduced to RDI in 2016 by Macy Sutantio, who later became my trainer. So I completed my RDI certification in 2020. What attracted me to RDI initially was how different it was from the behavioral approaches that were commonly known in Indonesia at that time. I usually follow Macy every time she came to Indonesia. I looks like her tail. I tell her when she goes to one client to another client's house. I never knew that there's different approaches in dealing with autistic children. It really gave me a completely different understanding of autism, and it helped me look beyond observable behaviors and to focus more on the development, relationships, and the underlying process. When I met Macy's clients, I was impressed with the parents' confidence. That's a big thing for me, because usually the clients that use common approaches the behavior approach, the parents are usually not that confident. That's how I was introduced and attracted with RDI.
That is a big difference, the empowerment of parents that RDI approach uses. We do see parents becoming their own children's champions and advocating for them.
Very true. With parents who successfully train with this RDI, I experienced many times that they even can give me suggestion later on how to deal with the children. Once they understand the principles, they got their confidence, they even can discuss with me and suggest how to do the activities or how to maximize the dynamic skill of the children. It's just so impressive.
What do you think are some of the challenges that families in Indonesia face when they are doing RDI?
The readiness, Jen. Some parents are just not ready. As a consultant, I try my best to prepare them if there's any challenges, if they have problem with their marriage, if usually the mom has high anxiety, if the father is really not involved, those things can become big obstacle in their RDI journey. What I usually suggest in the beginning is they need to realize the condition. For example, if the mom has any mental condition or anxiety that could become the obstacle, I will make her realize that although it's sometimes very tough, denial sometimes happen for the father. It's quite challenging to involve the fathers in RDI. If only the mother is in the boat, I will just do my very best to prepare her, to equip her. Then maybe she can share it to her husband. When the awareness comes, everything becomes smoother. The challenge is usually bigger in the parent side, right? If the parents come to me when the children are already 10, it's more challenging to change the pattern. I usually already make assumption or prognosis, we call it in clinical setting, that this will be more challenging to change the pattern of the parents if the child is older.
So as you work with families doing RDI, what are some of the shifts and changes that you've noticed?
The most noticeable changes is that parents become more confident in their role. Instead of relying on professionals, they begin to see themselves as active guides in their child's development. It doesn't mean that they don't need professionals anymore, but they are more critical. They think deeper about the suggestion and they can compare and they can apply the suggestion to their everyday situation. It's a higher level of parenting. I also observe that the family become more regulated as a whole. So communication improves, interactions become more meaningful. Even to their typical children, they apply that RDI principles and they feel more empowered in their everyday relationship with their children.
And that's the amazing thing. It really transcends to other children as well. I remember one father even saying, I think these things will actually help some of my employees.
Very true. Because we can apply the principles to the whole families, right, Jen? I apply the principles to my family. And even my husband usually remind me with the principles. He remind me to slow down, to be deliberate with my action. We use decorative communication a lot in our family. We witness how the principles really help our child to grow more dynamic. That's the changes I saw also in the families I'm working with.
And with RDI, that's one of the things we often say, that RDI can help anyone, any child, but it may not always be the right fit for every family. Do you find that to be true in Indonesia as well?
Indonesia, mostly in big cities like Jakarta, Tangerang, where I am living now, it's common for us to use nannies, and that's a big thing because with this nanny factor, sometimes we feel lazy if we need ourselves to train our children, and that happens a lot in the family. It's easier for the family to choose the approach where here I pay you, do the therapy to my child. But when it comes to, oh, I'm the one who will be trained, I need to do the assignment with my child, they will give like so many reasons. But when the parents like already aware that they are the most important guide for the children, they will not be hesitant. My job actually, because I'm working as a psychologist, is not to convince it, but to open their perspective about the importance of parents being involved in the journey. To be honest, it's not easy. It doesn't matter if the families come from high or low economic status here in Indonesia, but the awareness is challenging to convince the parents that they are the best therapists actually for the children.
I think it's something we've all encountered in different parts of the world. Even in where we are in Singapore, we do encounter that. That's why we often talk to parents, have a chat with them before we even get started.
Sometimes working with parents from high economic background is more challenging because they can pay for the therapists, they can pay for the nannies, but to ask them to directly train their children is sometimes very challenging. Most of the time, it's easier to work with parents who don't have all the facilities because they don't have choice. They will be the one who hands-on to the child directly, and they will be the one who are thirsty to teach me, so I can do something for my child.
As a lecturer, how do you see RDI fitting into current educational or psychological frameworks?
I introduced RDI to my students here in Faculty of Psychology at Universitas Pelita Harapan. Sometimes there are questions, is it evidence-based? I usually show the information from Australian government website, RDI. It needs more research, but current research show positive effect. The status is promising for RDI. And I explained to them that empirically and from cases that we consultants already dealt around the world, the effect of this RDA intervention is good, is positive. I actually introduced this RDA with the relationship approach framework in my university, one of our distinguishing characteristic is our emphasis on relationships. So this RDI aligns naturally with that perspective. And from my own literature study, I have also found that RDI is consistent with the principles of interpersonal neurobiology. Dr. Stephen Gustin, in his book, also mentioned Daniel Siegel's theory. When I deepened my study about the theoretical framework behind it, I found that how this secure relationship crafted in the RDI program actually activate many dynamic skills in our children's brain. Specifically, Dr. Daniel Siegel coined the brain part is in our middle prefrontal cortex. So this is our prefrontal cortex, and the middle prefrontal is like around here. It's the part that integrate many parts of the brain. When I started 4 or 5 RDI groups during the pandemic, online RDI group, I was amazed with the progress of the children when the parents reported to me, oh, she can stare longer to me now. The two-way communications are better. I don't know whether it's a pandemic factor, but the parents during the pandemic are more diligent in training their children. Jen, after pandemic, the enthusiasm is lower. But it's true that the parents in my group are very passionate during the pandemic time, training their children. When I got all this report, I was wondering, how come like a simple play back and forth could make a lot of difference? I know the practice from my trainer, Macy, oh, it will develop this and that, but I want to know the theoretical reason. That's when I read a book with this interpersonal neurobiology approach from Daniel Siegel. From there, I understand, oh, okay, so the idea from Daniel Siegel that secure and meaningful relationships can shape a child's brain development, especially the functions with the middle prefrontal cortex. And one of the function is the flexible thinking and also attuned communication. I found the theoretical foundation, it does make sense. So that's how I usually explain to the parents.
A great thing about using that brain-based approach to explain to parents, I think once they start to see it, then they start to recognize why it's important to work on the processes and not just look at the behavior, but to see what the behavior is actually really communicating to us about the underlying processes.
That's also the thing that I highlight to them, why we as the parents should be the one who do it, not the therapists, not the nannies, because the parents are the first person in the child's life that no one can love our children like we do, right? Yeah, not the therapist. You pay them, but they cannot love you like we love our children.
How do you see RDI growing in Indonesia?
The awareness of Indonesian parents that relationship approaches are effective compared to only the behavior approach. The awareness is growing, Jen. So we have some relationship-based approach here in Indonesia. RDI is one of them. But we need more education and awareness for the parents. I'm still also wondering if, not seminars maybe, but I wonder if there's like a system where the parents, even in the rural areas, can learn about this RDI. I think it will help a lot.
So if someone is listening to this conversation and they want to take a step forward, what would you suggest to a family as well as a professional?
I would encourage them to slow down first, spend a few minutes simply being present with your child. Put aside the goal of teaching, correcting, getting a specific response. Just focus on sharing an experience together. These are the things that introduced in RDI. You will see magic when you start to slow down and when you start to apply RDI principles. It's a simple principle, just to breathe and slow down. But when you understand those principles and apply them, you will see progress in your child. Learn about this RDI program. Later, it will not just be a program, but it will be a lifestyle. Many of the parents already did the RDI with me. At the end, they understand that this is a lifestyle and they apply the principle to even to themselves and the whole family. It's a lifestyle that reminds us to back to our root, to slow down, to be more regulated, to connect with our children. Actually, it's just like simple things, but we need to be reminded. Of course, in RDI, it will be professionally based on the needs of the family. For professionals, I remember in 2008, 2009, when I started to work as a junior psychologist in a clinic in North Jakarta, I can't forget when there's a 8 years old boy. He's diagnosed with autism, and at that time he still couldn't talk. The director of the clinic tried to discipline him. At that time he showed tantrum, and my director banged on the table very loud, and she shouted very loud, "Be quiet!" The boy became silent. I asked my director, "Why did you do that?" She said, "It should be done like this, so the negative behavior stop." I couldn't forget that scene even until now, because I feel something in my heart that this is not right. I don't want to debate with all the professionals who trust with behavior approach. I know that there are behavior approaches these days that are more friendly, I know. But the principles in relationship-based approach like RDI is completely different. Please, professionals, let's widen our perspective. Just open yourself to know not only one approach, but also this relationship-based approach in intervening autism.
What gives you hope when you think about the future of children and families that choose to go on the RDI pathway?
The number of families whom I'm working with that successfully apply the RDI principles, I can count them with fingers. But I don't blame myself, and I don't blame the parents, because I know changes, it's not easy for the family to change the pattern, to learn how to slow down, to be present with the child. I know it's not easy. As a mom, I also experience the challenges. I can't imagine for families who have autistic children. It must be hard. But for me, these families who are successfully apply it, I can see significant growth in their children. If you compare the video from the first session and like now, you can see the difference. Even I like, wow, is this the same child? I wish like every family want to go through the step. But I cannot force anyone, of course, and the readiness are different in every family. What gives me hope is seeing how much the children can grow when they're surrounded with these attuned relationships from the parents. I see the families who become more confident, joyful together, and they can accept the children now like in a more positive way. They don't like put so much targets. And it's really changed the atmosphere, not only for the child, but also the entire family.
Like what you mentioned, it's a lot less stressful when you focus on appreciating the process and the growth step by step, rather than focus on the end product all the time, which causes a lot of stress when you feel that, oh my gosh, that end product is so far away.
In Indonesia, we have this term, berproses. So it's like you go through the process, berproses. The families who successfully go through the process will be the one who usually see the good result. Although they don't target on the result, they target on the process now. Secure and meaningful relationships are very important to maximize our children's development. Provide time for our children, because we are their best teacher, we are their best nanny, their best therapist. For Indonesian parents out there, I'm a parent too. I need a nanny because I'm a working mom, but no one can replace our role for our children.
Thank you, Febri, for taking the time to chat with us today and for sharing your own experiences with RDI.
Thank you for inviting me, Jen. Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining me on this episode of Shared Steps, the RDI Journey. If you found today's conversation meaningful, I'd love for you to follow or subscribe so you won't miss the next episode. And if you know a parent or professional who might benefit from understanding RDI a little deeper, please share this podcast with them. Every small step helps us spread awareness across Southeast Asia and beyond. Thanks for listening, and I look forward to having you with me